The sensor readings made no sense whatsoever. Ambassador Rillan stared at the display screen for the third time that cycle, hoping the numbers would somehow change into something reasonable. They did not. Planet designation 377 Earth showed atmospheric oxygen levels that would ignite the lungs of half the species in the Galactic Council. The gravity reading was double what most civilizations considered comfortable. Radiation from the local star poured onto the surface in waves that required shielding on every other inhabited world. Yet someone was definitely living down there. Dr. Vosh floated over to the display panel, his transparent body rippling with confusion. As the expedition's lead xenobiologist, he had studied thousands of worlds across dozens of systems. Nothing in his experience prepared him for this contradiction. "The instruments are broken," Vosh said flatly. "They must be. No species evolves on a Class 12 death world. The classification exists purely for academic purposes." Pilot Trill, barely past her training phase, leaned forward with unconcealed excitement. Her scales shifted to bright yellow, a sign of curiosity among her people. "But look at the electromagnetic signals. Those are communication patterns, sophisticated ones. They have satellites in orbit." Rillan adjusted his methane suit and examined the data more carefully. Trill was correct. The primitive radio signals they had detected from 3 systems away were actually just the oldest transmissions. Current readings showed a complex network of orbital stations, planetary communications, and what appeared to be early, faster-than-light experiments. "Run a full planetary scan," Rillan ordered. "I want atmospheric composition, geological activity, biological diversity, everything." The results arrived within moments. Vosh made a sound like escaping gas, which in his species indicated extreme distress. "This cannot be right. The atmosphere is 21% oxygen, free oxygen. The entire planet is essentially a slow combustion reaction. There are over 8 million distinct biological species. The tectonic activity shows 15 major plates in constant motion. There are something called hurricanes that generate more kinetic energy than our ship's engines." "Pull up visual data from the orbital stations," Rillan said quietly. The screen shifted to show live footage from what appeared to be a space station in low orbit. Beings moved through the corridors with casual confidence. They walked upright on 2 legs, had bilateral symmetry, and seemed completely unbothered by their environment. One of them was drinking something from a container while looking out a window at their planet below. "Enhance image on that one," Vosh requested. The view zoomed closer. The being was mammalian, covered in protective clothing but with exposed skin on the face and hands. Internal temperature scans showed it maintained a core temperature that would cook most species from the inside. It was breathing the station's atmosphere without assistance, an atmosphere matched to the planet below. "They evolved there," Trill whispered. "They actually evolved on a death world and survived." Rillan felt his respiratory system constrict. In all of Council history, no species had ever been discovered on a world rated above Class 8. Those few civilizations were considered exceptionally hardy and often served in hazardous environment roles. Class 12 was theoretical. It represented conditions so hostile that life should not exist at all. "Initiate first contact protocols," Rillan said, "but keep all shields at maximum. If they survive that planet, we need to assume they are extremely dangerous." The communications officer, a being of pure energy named Lux, sent out the standard greeting in mathematical sequences. The response came back in less than a minute. Not in mathematics. In 17 different language systems, all translated into galactic standard with remarkable accuracy. The message was simple and terrifying in its friendliness. "Hello, we've been wondering when someone would stop by. Please come down to Geneva Spaceport. We'd love to meet you in person. Lunch is on us." "They want us to land," Vosh said, his body turning a pale shade of fear, "on the surface of a death world." Rillen pulled up more data on the suggested landing site. The city called Geneva sat near enormous mountains that were still tectonically active. Weather patterns showed it experienced regular freezing temperatures in one season and intense heat in another. The atmospheric pressure at that elevation was lower than sea level, meaning even thinner oxygen for species that found the normal concentration dangerous. "Show me what these humans do for recreation," Rillen requested. The database pulled up information that made everyone in the control room fall silent. Humans deliberately jumped from aircraft for fun. They climbed mountains that could kill them with cold, altitude, or falls. They dove deep into their oceans, which were apparently filled with predators and crushing pressure. They ran marathons in deserts. They lived in regions with active volcanoes and simply accepted periodic evacuations as normal life. One video showed a young human swimming in water, laughing, while a massive predator with hundreds of teeth circled nearby. The description called it cage diving with great whites and listed it as a tourist activity. "I need to recalibrate my entire understanding of survival instincts," Vosh muttered. Trill pulled up biological data. "Look at this. Their bodies are designed to repair damage constantly. They have an immune system that fights off millions of microscopic invaders every single day. They heal from broken bones. They can survive without food for weeks using stored energy. Their pain tolerance is classified as extreme by our medical standards." "What do they fear?" Rillen asked quietly. The database search returned an interesting result. Humans feared each other most of all. Their own species had been their primary threat for most of their evolution. Secondary fears included specific predators from their world, certain environmental conditions, and something called deep ocean trenches. Rillen made a decision. Prepare a landing team. Full hazard suits rated for Class 10 environments, medical staff on standby, and someone find out what humans eat so we do not accidentally poison ourselves at this lunch meeting. The research took mere moments. The results were horrifying. Humans consumed foods that were toxic to most galactic species. They ate plants that evolved defensive poisons and animals that carried diseases. They deliberately added chemical irritants to their food for flavor. They drank ethanol for recreation, a substance used as industrial solvent in most civilizations. "They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered," Vosh said quietly, "and they invited us to lunch." Rillen watched the planet rotate below them, this impossible world that should be lifeless but instead teemed with complexity. Somewhere down there, beings that should not exist were preparing to meet them, probably with the same casual confidence they showed toward hurricanes and predators. "Set course for Geneva," Rillen ordered, "and may the cosmic forces help us all." The ship descended toward Earth, toward humanity, toward the Deathworlders who apparently thought their lethal planet was a nice place to live. Geneva spaceport sprawled across a valley surrounded by ancient mountains, and from orbit it looked deceptively peaceful. Rillen watched through the viewport as their shuttle descended through atmospheric layers that would strip the hull of lesser ships. The turbulence alone would have grounded most civilian craft in Council space. The humans apparently considered it normal flying weather. "Gravity increasing to 1.9 standard," the pilot announced nervously. "Atmospheric pressure stabilizing at death world parameters. Temperature gradient acceptable, but only because we are landing in what they call their temperate zone." Vosh had gone completely transparent with stress, a defense mechanism his species used when terrified. "Their temperate zone has killed 3 of our probe drones from weather alone. I have read reports of something called a thunderstorm that generates electrical discharges powerful enough to disable our sensors." The shuttle touched down with a slight bump. Through the windows, the landing pad looked ordinary enough. Clean surfaces, guidance lights, the standard infrastructure of a space-capable civilization. Then Rillen noticed the humans walking around outside without environment suits. Just walking. in the open air, breathing poison and supporting nearly double standard gravity like it was nothing. "Full hazard gear," Rillen ordered. "No one leaves this shuttle without complete environmental protection." The landing team assembled near the airlock. Each wore a suit rated to withstand corrosive atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and gravitational stress. The suits represented the finest protective technology the Council could produce. Rillen felt ridiculous knowing they needed this much protection just to meet someone for lunch. The airlock opened. Earth's atmosphere rushed in, and alarms immediately started screaming about oxygen levels and atmospheric contamination. Rillen stepped out onto alien soil for the first time. The gravity hit him like a physical blow. His suit compensated with internal supports, but he could feel the weight pressing down on every movement. Walking required genuine effort. His species had evolved on a low-gravity world, and even with technological assistance, this felt like moving through thick liquid. A group of humans waited near the landing pad. They wore simple clothing, no protective gear whatsoever, and they were smiling. One of them stepped forward with a hand extended in what the database identified as a greeting gesture. "Ambassador Rillen, welcome to Earth. I am Rachel Okonkwo, representing the United Nations Diplomatic Corps. We are honored to meet you." Rillen carefully grasped her hand, nodding that her grip strength could probably crush small stones. Her skin was warm, radiating heat that his species would find uncomfortable. She was breathing the corrosive atmosphere with obvious ease. "Thank you for receiving us," Rillen managed. "Your world is very different from ours." Rachel's smile widened. "We get that a lot, apparently. Please follow me. We have prepared a meeting facility with environmental controls that should make you more comfortable." The walk to the building took far longer than it should have. What humans clearly considered a casual stroll felt like an endurance march to the alien delegation. Trill kept scanning everything with unconcealed fascination, her scales shifting through a rainbow of excited colors. Inside the facility, the humans had indeed adjusted the environment. The gravity was still crushing by Council standards, but climate controls had reduced the oxygen to levels that would not immediately corrode sensitive equipment. It was a gesture of hospitality that Rillen appreciated deeply. "We have prepared some refreshments," Rachel said, gesturing to a table. "Our xenobiology team worked with your transmitted dietary requirements. Everything here should be safe for your various biologies." The spread included nutrient solutions, mineral supplements, and gas mixtures appropriate for each species. Beside it sat the human refreshments. Rillen watched in horrified fascination as Rachel picked up a container of dark liquid and drank it casually. "Is that safe?" Vosh asked before he could stop himself. Rachel looked at her cup with amusement. "It's coffee, caffeinated beverage. Completely normal for us, though I understand the caffeine content would be toxic to most of you. We have quite a few things like that." Dr. Henry Watts, the human xenobiologist, stepped forward with obvious enthusiasm. "Your chemical analysis of our common foods must have been interesting reading. We have evolved alongside quite a variety of natural toxins. Our livers are basically chemical processing plants." "Your entire digestive system is hostile," Vosh blurted out. "You have acid strong enough to dissolve metal. You host billions of microorganisms in your intestines. You can consume fungal growths and fermented plant matter." Henry laughed, a sound that made several aliens flinch. "When you put it that way, it does sound extreme. But yes, our gut biome is essential to our survival. We are never truly alone. We are walking ecosystems." The formal introductions continued, but Rillen found himself distracted by small observations. The way humans moved with such casual grace in gravity that exhausted him. The way they maintained body temperatures that would cause heat stroke in his species. The way they seemed completely unbothered by their own world's attempts to kill them. "Ambassador Okonkwo," Rillan said carefully. "Your profile mentions you grew up in the Australian outback. What is that?" Rachel's expression shifted to something fond and slightly amused. "It's a desert region. Very hot, very dry. Lots of unique wildlife." "Dangerous wildlife?" Trill asked eagerly. "Well, yes. I grew up around snakes that could kill you with one bite, spiders with neurotoxins, crocodiles that could swallow you whole, and jellyfish whose sting causes agony beyond description. Oh, and the plants. Many of them had thorns or caused rashes. The sun exposure alone could be lethal without protection." Rillan felt faint. "And this is where you raise children?" "Millions of people live there quite happily," Rachel said with a shrug. "You learn to check your shoes for spiders, watch where you step, and respect the wildlife. It's home." Vosh made that gas-escaping sound again. "You describe surviving multiple lethal threats as checking your shoes." "I suppose we do have a different perspective on danger," Henry admitted. "Earth has always been challenging. We have 5 major extinction events in our geological record: ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, asteroid impacts. Life here adapts or dies, and somehow we kept adapting." "Your species' persistence is remarkable," Rillan said quietly. "But surely you must have safe places on your world." The humans exchanged glances. Rachel spoke carefully. "Every place on Earth has some form of risk. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, blizzards. We build to withstand them, we prepare for them, and we keep going. It's just part of living here." "Do you ever consider leaving?" Trill asked. "Colonizing easier worlds?" "We have plans for colony worlds, yes," Henry said. "But Earth is home. We love it here, dangers and all. Besides, the challenges made us who we are. We are problem solvers because we had to be." A soft chime interrupted the conversation. Rachel checked a device on her wrist. "Ah, lunch is ready. I hope you don't mind if we eat in your presence. We made sure to prepare our food in a separate area to avoid any atmospheric contamination from cooking processes." The humans ate things that made the aliens' medical scanners activate emergency warnings: cooked plant matter, animal proteins, complex carbohydrates, spices that registered as mild poisons. They consumed it all with obvious enjoyment while discussing cultural histories and scientific discoveries. Halfway through the meal, a young human entered the room, moving quickly. She approached Rachel and whispered something urgently. Rachel's expression shifted to concern. "Is everything all right?" Rillan asked. "Minor situation," Rachel assured him. "One of our orbital stations is reporting a pressure fluctuation. Nothing critical, but we need to send an engineer up to check it. It happens sometimes. Space is always trying to kill us too, you know." She said it with a smile, like it was a joke. Rillan realized with growing certainty that for humans, it was not entirely a joke. They faced death regularly and simply accepted it as part of existence. As the meal concluded, Rillan found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about survival and civilization. These humans had not merely survived their death world. They had thrived on it, built upon it, and somehow maintained kindness and curiosity despite constant environmental threats. They were, without question, the most dangerous beings the Council had ever encountered, and they had just offered friendship over lunch. Dr. Kessa arrived on Earth 3 cycles after the initial contact, carrying specialized recording equipment and a head full of questions that needed answers. As the Galactic Council's lead xenopsychologist, she had analyzed thousands of species across hundreds of worlds. Her expertise lay in understanding how environment shaped psychology, behavior, and survival strategies. Nothing in her training prepared her for humans. The interview facility in Geneva had been modified to accommodate her species' needs. Lower oxygen, reduced gravity fields in her designated area, and appropriate lighting. Kessa settled into her specialized chair and watched as the first human subject entered the room. "Good morning," the human said cheerfully. I'm Rebecca Foster. I understand you want to learn about human psychology. Kessa activated her recording devices. Yes, I need to understand how your species survived conditions that should have prevented complex civilization from developing. Please, tell me about a normal day in your life. Rebecca sat down in a chair that would have crushed Kessa under its own weight in Earth's gravity. Well, I'm a wildlife veterinarian, so my days vary quite a bit. Yesterday I treated a lion with an infected tooth, helped relocate a family of bears that wandered too close to a residential area, and gave vaccinations to some domestic animals. You work with predators? Kessa asked, her translator converting her sounds into human-audible speech. Large predators, yes. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, also reptiles sometimes. Last month I helped with a crocodile that had swallowed something it shouldn't have. Kessa checked her database. Lions were apex predators capable of killing prey many times their size. Crocodiles had existed virtually unchanged for millions of years because their design was already perfect for killing. And this is considered normal employment. For a wildlife vet, absolutely. Someone has to take care of them. Are you not afraid? Rebecca considered the question seriously. I'm cautious, respectful. I understand what they're capable of and take appropriate safety measures, but afraid? Not really. They're just animals doing what animals do. It's my job to help them. Kessa made detailed notes. A human who worked with creatures that could kill her considered it routine. Have you ever been injured? A few scratches and bruises over the years. Got bit by a nervous dog once. Nothing serious. Over the next several days, Kessa interviewed dozens of humans from various professions and backgrounds. The pattern that emerged was consistent and deeply troubling. A construction worker named Paulo described falling 3 stories and breaking multiple bones. Took about 8 weeks to heal up completely. The human body is pretty amazing at fixing itself. Now I'm more careful with harness inspections. 8 weeks. Kessa's species required months in medical facilities for injuries 1/10 as severe, and often never fully recovered. An athlete called Yuki explained her training regimen, which involved deliberately pushing her body to the edge of failure repeatedly. That's how you build strength and endurance. You stress the muscles, they repair stronger. You challenge your cardiovascular system, it adapts. Pain is just information. Pain is just information. Kessa had never heard another species describe suffering so casually. A deep-sea researcher named Omar showed her videos of his work in submersibles. We go down to depths where the pressure would crush an unprotected human instantly. Completely dark except for our lights. Amazing creatures down there. Some of them are pretty dangerous, but that's part of the job. You explore an environment that can kill you if your equipment fails, Kessa clarified. Well, yes, but that's true of space exploration too, or mountain climbing, or really any form of exploration. There's always risk. The interviews continued. A teacher who had survived a natural disaster. A doctor who worked in emergency medicine and described injuries that would be fatal to most species as treatable. A parent who talked about child-rearing strategies that included teaching children to assess and manage danger from a very young age. We teach them to look both ways before crossing streets, the parent explained. To not touch hot stoves, to swim so they don't drown, to recognize dangerous situations and either avoid them or handle them appropriately. You train your young to survive threats. Of course, the world is full of dangers. We can't protect them from everything, so we teach them how to protect themselves. Kessa pulled up comparative data on human childhood. The mortality rates had dropped dramatically over the past few centuries due to medical advances, but historically, human children faced constant threats from disease, predators, accidents, and environmental hazards. Evolution had made them remarkably resilient, but also vulnerable enough that extensive parental care was required. The contradiction fascinated her. Humans were simultaneously fragile and nearly indestructible. She interviewed a military veteran named Grace who had served in multiple combat zones. The conversation revealed aspects of human nature that Kessa found both admirable and terrifying. The hardest part wasn't the danger, Grace explained. It was watching people suffer and not being able to help everyone. We had extensive training in combat, survival, field medicine. But knowing what to do and being able to do it aren't always the same thing in crisis situations. You volunteered for this. Yes, I wanted to serve to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. A lot of us feel that way. It's part of being human. Kessa noted the pattern. Humans who possess the capability for extreme violence often use that capability to protect others. Their dangerous nature included the capacity for mercy. A historian named Dr. Lee provided context that helped Kessa understand human development. Our history is full of conflicts, yes. We fought each other for resources, territory, ideological differences. But we also cooperated on massive scales. We built civilizations, developed technologies, created art and philosophy. Our capacity for destruction is matched by our capacity for creation. How do you balance these opposing drives? We choose. Every day, every individual makes choices about who they want to be. Our environment made us capable of surviving terrible things, but our culture teaches us to build rather than destroy when possible. Kessa interviewed a paleontologist who explained human evolution in detail. The journey from small primates to dominant species involved surviving countless threats. Climate changes that destroyed other lineages, predators that were faster, stronger, better armed, diseases that killed in horrifying numbers, competition from other human subspecies. We're not the strongest species Earth ever produced, the paleontologist said. We're not the fastest or the most well-armed naturally, but we're adaptable. We learn. We cooperate. We make tools. We imagine solutions to problems that don't exist yet. That's what let us survive when bigger, tougher species went extinct. On her final day of interviews, Kessa spoke with a young parent and child. The child, perhaps 6 years old by human reckoning, had scraped her knee while playing. The injury bled slightly, and the child cried briefly. The parent cleaned the wound, applied a bandage, offered comfort, and within minutes the child was playing again. Kessa checked her medical scanner. The injury would have required significant medical intervention for most species. For the human child, it was so minor as to be barely worth noting. "Does she hurt?" Kessa asked the parent. "A little bit probably, but kids are tough. She'll forget about it in an hour." Tough, the word appeared constantly in human self-description. They were tough. Their world was tough. They got through tough times. It was a fundamental part of their identity. Kessa compiled her findings into a comprehensive report for the council. The conclusion was unavoidable and somewhat alarming. Humans were the product of the most hostile environment known to produce sentient life. Their world had shaped them into beings capable of surviving nearly anything through a combination of physical resilience, mental adaptability, and social cooperation. They possessed the capacity for extreme violence, but generally chose peaceful cooperation. They faced death regularly and responded with determination rather than despair. They were, without question, dangerous, but danger was not the same as evil. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans was that despite coming from a world that tried to kill them constantly, they had developed compassion, curiosity, and hope. The galaxy had met Deathworlders, and somehow, against all reasonable expectations, they were kind. The invitation arrived through official council channels with all the appropriate diplomatic protocols. The human delegation was requested to visit Sanctuary Station, the massive orbital hub that served as neutral ground for the Galactic Council's main operations. Rillen had helped draft the invitation personally, working with engineers to create an environment that would challenge humans while remaining survivable for other species. The result was a section of the station designed to test human capabilities without appearing to do so. Ambassador Rachel led the human delegation through the docking procedures. With her came Dr. Henry Watts, several scientific specialists, two security officers, and Dr. Patricia Nwasu, an emergency physician whose presence the humans had requested for reasons they described as standard safety protocols. Rillen met them at the airlock with genuine warmth. Over the past weeks, he had developed what humans called friendship with several members of their species. The fear had not entirely disappeared, but it had transformed into respectful caution. "Welcome to Sanctuary Station," Rillen said. "We have prepared accommodations that should feel familiar to you." Rachel smiled as she stepped through into the station proper. She moved normally, not struggling with the gravity as most species would. Rillen had set it at 1.4 standard, which was considered extremely heavy by council norms. It was light by Earth standards. "This is very comfortable," Rachel said diplomatically. "Thank you for the consideration." The human delegation settled into their quarters without difficulty. The atmospheric mix was oxygen-rich by station standards, though still lower than Earth normal. The temperature was warm. The radiation shielding was military-grade. Every accommodation that should have made humans feel challenged instead seemed to make them relaxed. The cultural exchange program began immediately. Humans and various council species shared meals, discussed scientific theories, and compared artistic traditions. Everything proceeded smoothly until the third day when alarms started shrieking through the station's industrial sector. Rillen rushed to the command center where screens showed a nightmare scenario. A coolant line had ruptured in one of the manufacturing zones. The leak was spewing chemicals that were toxic to most species and highly corrosive. 3 maintenance workers were trapped in the affected area, their communication signals weakening as their environment suits failed. "Evacuation teams are mobilizing," the station commander reported. "But the atmospheric contamination is spreading faster than predicted. We need specialized hazard units." "How long until they arrive?" Rillen demanded. 20 minutes minimum." On the screens, one of the trapped workers collapsed. 20 minutes would be far too long. "I can help." The voice came from behind Rillen. He turned to find Dr. Patricia standing in the command center doorway, already assessing the situation on the displays. "What's the contaminant?" The station commander provided the chemical composition. Patricia's face remained calm as she processed information that made Rillen's respiratory system seize with fear. "That's bad but survivable with proper treatment. I need someone to guide me to that section, and I need a basic environment suit." "You cannot possibly survive in that contamination," the commander protested. "The concentration will give me maybe 3 to 4 minutes before serious damage occurs. That's enough time to extract 3 people if I move fast." Patricia was already heading toward the equipment lockers. "Coming or not?" Captain David Rodriguez, one of the human security officers, was suddenly beside her. "I'll guide, you treat." They moved through the station at a pace that left the alien observers struggling to keep up even via camera feeds. David navigated with the quick efficiency of someone trained for crisis situations. Patricia carried a medical kit that looked absurdly small for a multi-casualty rescue. They reached the contaminated zone. David overrode the safety locks with authorization from the command center. The doors opened on a scene of chemical fog and failing lights. 3 minutes starting now," Patricia said calmly, checking a basic timer. She stepped into the contamination without hesitation. Rillen watched through helmet cameras as the 2 humans moved through an environment that would kill most species in seconds. The corrosive atmosphere was already beginning to affect their suits. Warning lights flashed across their displays. They ignored them completely. Patricia reached the first collapsed worker, a methane breather whose suit had completely failed. She administered an injection of something, checked vital signs, and signaled David. Together, they lifted the worker and moved toward the exit. 2 minutes 30 seconds, David reported. They deposited the first worker in clean atmosphere and went back. The second worker was conscious but disoriented. Patricia examined them quickly, provided treatment, and helped them walk out under their own power. 1 minute 40 seconds. The third worker was trapped under fallen equipment. David lifted debris that weighed more than he did. The station's reduced gravity helping, but his strength still remarkable. Patricia squeezed into the gap and began assessing injuries. Compound fracture, internal bleeding likely, shock setting in, she reported clinically. I need to stabilize before we move. 50 seconds. Patricia's hands moved with precise speed. Injection, pressure bandage, inflatable splint. Good enough. Extract now. They carried the third worker out with 30 seconds remaining. As they cleared the contaminated zone, medical teams swarmed forward. Patricia immediately began providing detailed handoff reports about each patient's condition and the treatments she had administered. Rillen noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Chemical burns marked her exposed skin where the suit had failed. She accepted basic treatment while continuing to monitor the 3 rescued workers. You could have died, Rillen said quietly when he finally reached her. Patricia looked at him with mild surprise. They would have died for certain if someone didn't help. I had the skills and the option. What else was I going to do? Most species would have waited for specialized equipment. Then most species would have lost 3 people. Patricia checked a monitor showing the workers improving vital signs. We'll all be fine. Humans have pretty good recovery rates. The incident analysis took several hours. The workers survived with full recovery expected. Patricia suffered moderate chemical exposure that would have been fatal to most species, but was classified as minor by human medical standards. David's exposure was even less severe. The news spread through Sanctuary Station rapidly. Humans had responded to a crisis that paralyzed other species with immediate action and no apparent fear. Over the following days, the cultural exchange took on new dimensions. Other species began requesting practical demonstrations of human capabilities. A human engineer showed how to perform repairs in high-radiation environments. A human pilot demonstrated maneuvers that made alien observers physically ill from the acceleration forces. A human chef prepared a meal that included ingredients toxic to most species, but perfectly safe for human consumption. The station commander, a being named Hess whose species valued careful planning above all else, approached Rillen privately. I have been reviewing human history and medical data, Hess said. They are not reckless. They calculate risks constantly and take extensive precautions. But when crisis comes, they respond instantly because they have spent their entire evolution practicing for disaster. They are emergency responders on a species-wide level, Rillen agreed. I am grateful they responded to our emergency, Hess continued. And I am submitting a formal recommendation to the Council. We need their skills, we need their perspective, we need Deathworlders. The recommendation included detailed reports about the rescue, analyses of human capabilities, and proposals for cooperation programs. It was compelling reading. On the final day of the visit, the human delegation gathered for a farewell ceremony. A young human girl, daughter of one of the scientists, had been exploring the station's recreational areas. She tripped while running and fell hard against the floor. The sound of impact made several aliens flinch. The girl sat up, looked at her scraped knee, and started crying. Her parent hurried over, provided comfort, cleaned the wound, and applied a bandage. Within 5 minutes, the girl was ready to continue playing. Rillen watched several council members observe this scene with obvious shock. The injury that would hospitalize their own young for extended periods was barely an inconvenience to a human child. Later, as the human ship prepared to depart, Rachel found Rillen on the observation deck. "Thank you for the invitation," she said sincerely. "We learned a great deal about the council species." "And we learned about the strength required to survive a death world," Rillen replied. "Also about the kindness that can exist alongside such strength. You did not have to risk yourselves for our people." Rachel's expression turned thoughtful. "On Earth, we have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We didn't survive our world by abandoning each other. We survived by helping each other. That doesn't change just because we left the planet." The human ship departed Sanctuary Station carrying gifts, data exchanges, and friendship agreements. Behind them, the Council began formal discussions about what role humans might play in galactic civilization. The Deathworlders had proven they were survivors. Now they were proving they were protectors too. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened under circumstances that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Representatives from 43 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of sounds, lights, and chemical signals that the translation systems worked overtime to interpret. Rillen stood at the central platform, presenting a problem that had plagued Council space for nearly a decade. The Broken Chain pirates have struck again. This time they hit Colony World Theta 9, a peaceful settlement of the Pellan people. 17 civilians dead, infrastructure destroyed, food supplies contaminated. This marks their 43rd attack in 3 years. Councillor Vess, representing the military coalition, gestured with frustration that needed no translation. "Our security forces cannot match their tactics. They strike without warning, use violence far beyond what civilized species consider acceptable, and disappear before reinforcements arrive. Every countermeasure we implement, they adapt to and exploit." The Broken Chain employs beings from various species who have rejected civilized norms, another counselor added. "They specifically recruit individuals willing to use lethal force without hesitation. Our security personnel are trained for peacekeeping, not warfare." The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. The Galactic Council had been at peace for so long that military traditions had faded. Most species had evolved on relatively gentle worlds where cooperation was more successful than conflict. Their security forces were adequate for maintaining order among populations that respected law. Against those who rejected all social contracts, they were struggling. Councillor Tress, an elder diplomat, spoke carefully. "There is one option we have not yet considered. We could request assistance from the humans." The reaction was immediate and mixed. Some councillors expressed approval, others radiated concern. A few projected outright fear. "The Deathworlders," Vess asked, "are we certain we want to invite such dangerous beings to solve our problems with violence?" "They did not use violence at Sanctuary Station," Rillen pointed out. "They used skill and bravery. Dr. Patricia risked her life to save others without any expectation of reward." "Rescuing 3 people is not the same as countering a pirate fleet," Vess countered. "We would be asking them to potentially kill other sentient beings." Tress gestured for attention. "I have been studying human history extensively. Yes, they have a long tradition of warfare. They have fought each other for resources, territory, and ideological differences. But they also have strong traditions around what they call rules of engagement. They make distinctions between soldiers and civilians. They have concepts of proportional response. They value honor even in combat. They are also the only species we know who might actually match the Broken Chain's willingness to use force," another counselor said quietly. "If we are facing beings who reject peaceful resolution, perhaps we need beings who understand violence but choose to control it." The debate continued for hours. Eventually, a vote was called. The resolution passed by a narrow margin. The Council would formally request human assistance with the pirate problem, making it clear that this was a voluntary request and that all actions must comply with Council law. Rillen carried the message to Earth personally. He met Rachel and several other human leaders in a secure facility designed for sensitive negotiations. The Council needs help, Rillen explained, providing detailed intelligence about the broken chain. We understand this is asking you to potentially engage in combat. We understand this may result in casualties. We are desperate enough to ask anyway. Rachel reviewed the information with several military and security advisors. The discussion that followed was conducted in clipped, professional tones that Rillen found somehow more frightening than anger would have been. These pirates are targeting civilians, one advisor noted. Hit-and-run tactics, no interest in negotiation or reformation. Standard anti-piracy operations, another said. We've dealt with similar groups in our own history. Rachel looked up at Rillen. Before we agree, I need to know the Council's position on use of force. What are the limitations? We ask that you follow human military law regarding proportional response and protection of noncombatants, Rillen said. Beyond that, you have authorization to do what is necessary to end the threat. We'll need detailed intelligence, supply line support, and legal protections for our personnel, Rachel stated. And we'll need Council observers to ensure transparency. Agreed to all terms. The human response team assembled over the following week. Commander Sarah Liu, a veteran of Earth's naval forces, led the operation. Her team included tactical specialists, intelligence analysts, and security personnel. They arrived at Council military headquarters with equipment that made the alien observers profoundly nervous. Human weapons were designed with the same brutal efficiency as everything else about their species. Kinetic accelerators, directed energy systems, explosives, electronic warfare packages, everything built to human durability standards, which meant they were overbuilt by everyone else's metrics. We prefer not to fight, Commander Liu explained during the briefing. But when fighting is necessary, we commit fully. Half measures in combat get people killed. The intelligence team analyzed broken chain patterns and identified their most likely staging areas. The tactical team developed response protocols. The whole process took less time than Rillen expected because humans had extensive experience with exactly this type of operation. The broken chain attacked another colony world right on schedule. This time, human rapid response teams were waiting in hidden positions nearby. Rillen watched the operation unfold from the command center. The pirate ships entered the colony's space with their usual arrogance, expecting easy prey. Instead, they found themselves targeted by weapon systems more advanced and aggressive than anything Council forces typically used. The humans transmitted a message on all frequencies. Commander Liu's voice was calm and absolutely certain. Broken chain vessels, you are hereby ordered to stand down and surrender. Refuse, and we will disable your ships and take you by force. Attack civilians and we will destroy you. You have 30 seconds to decide. The pirates responded with weapons fire, clearly not believing anyone would actually follow through on such threats. They learned otherwise very quickly. Human tactics were efficient and brutal. Precision strikes disabled pirate engines and weapons without destroying the ships entirely. Electronic warfare blinded their sensors. Boarding teams secured vessels before the pirates could organize effective resistance. The entire engagement lasted less than 12 minutes. 0 civilian casualties. 0 human casualties. 17 pirate vessels captured intact with all crew members detained. The intelligence recovered from the captured ships was extensive. The broken chain had operated from a hidden base in an asteroid field, using it to coordinate attacks across multiple sectors. Commander Liu presented the findings to the Council. We know where they're based. We can end this permanently if you authorize a direct strike. The authorization came through within hours. The Council had learned that sometimes problems required solutions that went beyond diplomacy. The assault on the pirate base was methodical. Humans surrounded the facility, gave clear warnings and opportunities for surrender, and then systematically dismantled any resistance. Within a day, the Broken Chain's main operations center was under Council control. The pirate captain, a being named Ren from a species known for aggressive tendencies, was brought before Commander Liu during the processing of prisoners. "You are human," Ren said, studying Liu with an expression Rillen's translator interpreted as horrified realization. "We researched your species after hearing rumors. We studied your wars, your weapons, your history." "Then you know we take prisoners when possible," Liu replied. "You and your crew will face trial under Council law. If you cooperate, you might survive this." "We stopped our attack the moment we realized who we faced," Ren said quietly. "Your species has weapons that make ours look primitive. You have tactics refined over thousands of years of conflict. You come from a world that tries to kill you every day, and you still survived long enough to reach the stars." Ren's body language shifted to what the translator called submission. "We are pirates, not fools. Fighting humans would be suicide." The Broken Chain collapsed within a week. Some members surrendered immediately upon learning humans were involved. Others attempted to flee Council space entirely. A few tried to fight and were captured anyway. Rillen stood with Commander Liu, watching the last pirate vessel being processed. "You solved in days what we could not solve in years." "You needed someone who understood violence," Liu said simply. "We do. We've spent our entire history learning how to fight and when to fight and how to stop fighting. It's not something we're proud of exactly, but it's what we know." "Will you help us train our security forces?" Rillen asked. "Not to be warriors, but to be able to stand against those who reject peace." Liu considered carefully. "We can teach defensive tactics, threat assessment, crisis response. We can help you protect what matters, but you need to remember that weapons are tools. What matters is the person using them and why." The Council formally invited humanity to establish a security training program and joint defense initiative. The humans accepted with the understanding that their role was protection, not domination. News spread quickly through galactic civilization. The Deathworlders had shown they could fight, but more importantly, they had shown they could choose when to fight and when to show mercy. They were dangerous, yes, but dangerous in service of others rather than themselves. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Sometimes the capacity for violence was necessary not to destroy, but to protect. 6 months after the Broken Chain fell, the Galactic Council assembled for a ceremony that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. Representatives from species across known space gathered to witness humanity's formal induction as a protectorate species, a role reserved for civilizations capable of defending others. Rillen watched from his designated position as Rachel approached the central platform. She wore formal diplomatic attire from Earth, simple and elegant without unnecessary decoration. Behind her stood representatives from every major human nation and several off-world colonies that had been established in recent months. The ceremony proceeded through traditional elements: recognition of humanity's technological achievements, acknowledgement of their cultural contributions, formal statements of mutual cooperation and respect. When it concluded, humanity had a voice in Council decisions and responsibilities for security operations across multiple sectors. But Rillen knew the ceremony was just formality. The real changes had already happened in countless small interactions across the past months. On Sanctuary Station, human engineers worked alongside alien counterparts to improve safety systems. The humans had experience with environments trying to kill them and brought that knowledge to station design. Emergency response times had improved by 40% since humans joined the teams. On colony worlds, human agricultural specialists helped adapt Earth crops to alien environments. Plants that had evolved on a death world proved remarkably adaptable to other conditions. Food security improved across 17 different settlements. In Council security forces, human instructors taught defensive tactics and crisis management. They emphasized that violence should always be the last option, but when necessary, it should be swift and controlled. Pirate attacks had dropped dramatically, partly because the pirates knew humans might respond. The cultural exchange programs had grown beyond anyone's initial expectations. Human artists collaborated with alien creators to produce works that blended perspectives. Human philosophers engaged in debates with alien thinkers about the nature of existence and morality. Human children attended schools alongside alien young, learning that difference was normal rather than frightening. Trill had indeed enrolled at a human university, studying xenobiology with Dr. Henry Watts as her advisor. She sent regular updates about her research into human immune systems and their applications for improving alien medicine. Her scales had permanently shifted to colors that indicated joy and fascination. Dr. Kessa published her comprehensive study on human psychology, which became required reading for anyone working with Deathworlders. The conclusion was clear. Humans were dangerous because Earth made them that way, but kind because they chose to be. After the formal ceremony, a reception allowed for informal interactions. Rillen found himself in conversation with a group that included Rachel, Commander Liu, Dr. Patricia, and several council members from various species. "I must confess," Counselor Vess said, "when we first detected your civilization, I believed you would be a threat to galactic peace. I was quite wrong." Rachel smiled gently. "We are a threat, though. Let's be honest about that. Humans are capable of terrible things when we choose to be. Our history proves it." "But you choose otherwise," Vess observed. "Most of the time, yes. We learned some hard lessons over the centuries. We made mistakes, caused suffering, destroyed things we should have protected. We're still not perfect, but we try to do better." Patricia added her perspective as a medical professional. "Earth taught us that everything is fragile and everything is resilient at the same time. Life finds ways to survive against impossible odds, but it can also be destroyed easily if you're not careful. That awareness makes us cautious." "Cautious?" Commander Liu repeated with mild amusement. "We jumped into a contaminated zone to rescue strangers. We took on an entire pirate organization. I'm not sure cautious is how other species see us." "We calculate risks quickly," Patricia corrected. "That's different from being reckless. When someone needs help and we can provide it, the calculation is simple." The conversation drifted to future plans. Humans were establishing more colony worlds, carefully choosing locations that other species found challenging but manageable. They were developing technologies to help other species survive in harsh environments. They were training the next generation to understand both their own capabilities and their responsibilities. Later in the evening, Rillen stepped outside the reception hall into an observation area that provided a view of Earth below. The planet rotated slowly, showing continents and oceans and weather systems that would kill most species. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Rachel joined him at the window, homesick. "I was thinking about the first time we saw your world from orbit," Rillen admitted. "We thought the sensor readings were broken because nothing should survive down there. Now I see millions of lights from your cities, orbital stations, ships coming and going. You didn't just survive, you flourished." "Earth made us strong," Rachel said, "but it also made us appreciate what we have. Every generation that survived did so by working together, adapting to challenges, and refusing to give up. Those lessons stayed with us even after we left the planet. You could have used that strength to dominate others." "Some humans suggested exactly that when we first learned about the Council," Rachel acknowledged. They saw species that seemed weak by our standards and thought we could take whatever we wanted. But most of us recognize that strength without purpose is just destruction. We'd rather build than break. A small group of human children ran past the observation window, laughing and playing. With them were alien young from several species, all integrated naturally into the games. They moved through the station's reduced gravity with equal awkwardness, united by the simple joy of play. Rillen watched them and felt something shift in his understanding. This was the future, not humans dominating or other species fearing, but everyone learning from each other's strengths. "I have a question," Rillen said. "What do humans fear? We've asked before, but I wonder if the answer has changed." Rachel considered seriously. "We fear failure. We fear losing what matters. We fear becoming the monsters we're capable of being. But mostly, we fear not living up to what we could be." She gestured toward the playing children. "They're inheriting a galaxy full of potential. We fear wasting that potential or letting them down." "That is a very human fear," Rillen observed. "Most species fear external threats. You fear internal failures. Earth taught us that the universe doesn't care about our survival. It will kill us without malice or intention. So we learn to care deeply about each other because that's all we really have." Down on Earth's surface, in cities and towns and remote settlements, humans went about their daily lives. They worked jobs that would horrify other species. They raised children in conditions that required constant vigilance. They pursued dreams and built futures on a world that had tried to kill their ancestors for millions of years. But they also laughed. They created art. They fell in love. They helped neighbors and strangers alike. They looked up at the stars and wondered what else was possible. The galaxy had met humans and discovered that Deathworlders were not the heartless survivors they expected. They were beings who understood fragility because they had experienced it personally, who valued life because they knew how easily it could end, who possessed tremendous capacity for violence but generally chose compassion instead. They were dangerous, yes. They could kill without hesitation when necessary. They could survive conditions that destroyed others. They could endure pain, loss, and hardship that would break most species. But they were also healers, teachers, protectors, and friends. They shared knowledge freely. They risked themselves for strangers. They built rather than destroyed when given the choice. In the Grand Council records, humanity received a formal classification that took weeks of debate to finalize. The final entry read: Species Human, Origin Earth Class 12 Death World, Threat Assessment Extreme, Combat Capability Superior, Survivability Exceptional, Recommended Status Allied Protectorate. Special notes: despite classification as highly dangerous Deathworlders, humans demonstrate consistent patterns of cooperation, empathy, and protective behavior toward other species. Approach with respect rather than fear. Potential for violence exists, but is tempered by cultural values emphasizing restraint and proportional response. The classification included one final line, added by Rillen personally. They are exactly what we need them to be. Dangerous enough to face any threat and kind enough to choose peace whenever possible. As the reception concluded, and various species departed for their home worlds, Rillen stood at the observation window watching Earth turn below. Somewhere down there, in the cradle of humanity's birth, storms raged and tectonic plates shifted, and life continued in all its dangerous beauty. The Deathworlders had joined galactic civilization, and civilization was better for it. The galaxy had found its protectors, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple choice of a species that knew what it meant to struggle and decided that others should not have to struggle alone. Humans had met aliens, and both had discovered that strength meant nothing without the wisdom to use it well.